$1 million isn't the most dangerous number in personal finance. The dangerous part is believing you understand what that number means. Because every day, millions of people are shown charts proving that investing just a few dollars a day can eventually make them wealthy. The math is usually correct. The conclusion often isn't. And the difference between those two ideas quietly determines whether someone builds lasting wealth or spends decades chasing an expectation reality was never designed to deliver. Today, we're going to pull those two ideas apart. Not to discourage investing. Quite the opposite. By the end of this video, you'll understand why many popular money rules fail ordinary people, what actually creates wealth over decades, and why two people following the exact same financial advice can end up in completely different places. Let's begin with something that seems almost impossible. Imagine someone invests just $250 every month. Nothing extraordinary. No lottery win. No inheritance. No perfect stock picks. Just automatic investing every month for decades. Eventually, the portfolio grows into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe even over $1 million. That sounds almost magical. But it isn't. It's mathematics. More specifically, it's compound growth. Compound growth simply means that your investment doesn't only earn returns. Eventually, those returns begin earning returns too. Think of it like planting a tree. The first few years, growth is almost invisible. Then the branches appear. Eventually, those branches create new branches. Years later, the tree is growing because of growth that already happened years before. Money behaves the same way. This is why long-term investing looks boring. Until suddenly it doesn't. But here's where almost every viral finance video quietly changes the story. They show you the final number. They celebrate the $1 million. Then they move on. They rarely stop to ask a much more important question. What had to be true for that number to actually happen? Because every financial projection hides assumptions. Some are reasonable. Some are optimistic. Some are never even mentioned. And if you don't understand those assumptions, you're not following a plan. You're following a fantasy. Meet Daniel. Daniel is 27. He earns a comfortable salary. He starts watching finance content after deciding he wants more control over his future. One creator recommends investing immediately. Another says build a 6-month emergency fund first. A third insists budgeting percentages are the secret. Another argues those percentages are outdated. Within a week, Daniel has dozens of browser tabs open. Every expert sounds confident. Every spreadsheet looks convincing. Every chart ends with financial freedom. Yet somehow, none of them agree. Instead of feeling informed, he feels overwhelmed. Not because finance is impossibly complicated. Because he's searching for certainty where certainty doesn't exist. This is one of the biggest misconceptions about personal finance. People think successful investors have discovered the perfect formula, the perfect percentage, the perfect budget, the perfect allocation. Reality is far less exciting and much more useful. There isn't one universally correct budget. There isn't one perfect investing ratio. There isn't one magical spending rule. There are only principles, applied differently depending on income, goals, risk tolerance, age, responsibilities, and life's constant unpredictability. That's why two responsible adults can organize their money differently and both be making excellent financial decisions. So why do so many viral money systems look completely different? Because percentages are easy to remember. They're easy to package. They're easy to sell. Spend this much. Save this much. Invest this much. Simple rules spread faster than nuanced explanations. But simplicity isn't the same as accuracy. Think about nutrition. One healthy athlete may eat far differently than another. Different calories, different meal timing, different foods. Yet underneath those differences, the same biological principles are doing the work. Money works much the same way. Different-looking systems often rest on the exact same foundations. Strip away all the colorful charts, the catchy names, the budget templates, and almost every successful financial plan is trying to accomplish only 3 objectives. First, Make sure your lifestyle costs less than your income. Second, protect yourself against financial shocks that are guaranteed to arrive eventually. Third, put excess money into productive assets that can grow over time. Everything else is mostly optimization. Those three principles are the engine. The percentages are simply different dashboard designs. This distinction matters more than most people realize, because people naturally optimize whatever seems measurable. It's easier to debate whether someone should invest 20% or 25% than to ask whether they have enough financial resilience to survive losing their job next month. One conversation feels mathematical, the other feels uncomfortable, but only one of them is likely to determine whether the investment plan survives long enough to succeed. That's the hidden theme running underneath almost every financial success story. Not finding perfect returns. Surviving long enough for ordinary returns to compound. Daniel doesn't understand this yet. Neither do most new investors. They're searching for the perfect map, without realizing the road itself constantly changes. And that's exactly where the next mistake begins. Because the biggest threat to long-term investing isn't usually choosing the wrong percentage. It's believing growth is the only job your money needs to do. The mistake usually starts with a perfectly reasonable thought. If my investments grow faster than cash, why keep cash at all? At first glance, the logic seems airtight. A savings account might earn a few percent. A diversified stock portfolio has historically produced much higher long-term returns, although those returns are never guaranteed. So why let money sit still? Why not put every available dollar to work? The answer has almost nothing to do with investing. It has everything to do with timing. Because markets don't care when your life falls apart. Meet Emma. She's disciplined. Every payday she automatically invests. She avoids unnecessary spending. She believes every dollar should be growing. Over several years, her portfolio steadily expands. She feels like she's finally building momentum. Then, without warning, her transmission fails. A family medical expense arrives. 2 weeks later, reduced work hours shrink her income. None of these events are extraordinary. In fact, they're almost predictable not individually but collectively. Life eventually sends everyone an expensive month. The question isn't if, it's when. Emma has enough money. The problem is where that money lives. Almost all of it is invested. To pay her bills, she has one option. Sell investments. Normally, selling isn't a problem. Selling because you plan to is very different from selling because you have no choice. Imagine needing to cross a river. Owning a boat is useful. Owning a boat that's trapped on the opposite side when you need it isn't. Liquidity, the ability to access money quickly without major loss, is one of the least exciting concepts in finance. It's also one of the most valuable. This is why emergency funds exist. Not because cash creates wealth, because cash protects wealth. Think of it as the shock absorber on a car. Shock absorbers don't make the engine faster. They don't improve fuel efficiency. They don't increase horsepower. Yet remove them, and eventually the entire vehicle suffers damage. An emergency fund serves the same purpose. Its job isn't maximizing returns. Its job is preventing one unexpected expense from permanently interrupting decades of compounding. Many people underestimate the hidden cost of forced selling. Suppose someone withdraws $15,000 from investments during a difficult year. At first glance, the loss appears to be $15,000. But that's rarely the real cost. That money also loses every future year of potential growth. If purely as an illustration, those investments could have earned an average real return of around 6 to 7% over many years, that single withdrawal might represent tens of thousands of dollars in future purchasing power. The emergency wasn't just expensive. Permanently removed part of tomorrow's wealth. This is why experienced investors often describe cash as an option rather than an investment. It buys flexibility, and flexibility has value. Protection doesn't mean stuffing cash under a mattress. Money reserved for emergencies should still work, just differently. Its priorities aren't maximum return. Its priorities are simple. It should be available quickly. It should hold its value. It should generate at least some interest while waiting. Depending on the country you live in, that may mean a high-yield savings account or another low-risk cash equivalent. The exact account matters less than the principle. Your emergency money should be boring. Boring is exactly what you want during an emergency. Now let's return to Daniel. Remember him? He was overwhelmed by endless financial advice. At first, he believed investing was simply about earning the highest return possible. Now he sees something different. His investments have two jobs: grow over decades and survive those decades. Growth without protection is fragile. Protection without growth slowly loses purchasing power. Neither works well alone. Together, they become surprisingly powerful. Notice something interesting. We've barely discussed percentages. Not because percentages are useless, because they answer the wrong question first. Before asking, how much should I invest? A better question is, can my investment plan survive real life? Financial success isn't built by maximizing every spreadsheet. It's built by creating a system that continues operating after layoffs, medical bills, unexpected repairs, economic downturns, and all the other interruptions that eventually arrive. The best investment strategy isn't the one with the highest projected return. It's the one you're still following 20 years from now. And that brings us to the final misunderstanding. Because even people who protect their money and invest consistently can still build their entire future around one number that quietly tells the wrong story. There's one last lesson Daniel still hasn't learned. Ironically, it's hidden inside the number everyone celebrates. Not because the calculation is wrong, because the question is, when people ask, how much money will I have? They're usually asking the wrong question. The better question is, what will that money actually buy? Those are not the same thing. And confusing them changes everything. Imagine you lock a suitcase in your attic today. Inside is exactly $100,000. You never touch it. 40 years pass. You finally open the suitcase. Every bill is still there. Not a single dollar has disappeared. So, are you just as wealthy as the day you locked it away? Of course not. Because wealth isn't measured by the number printed on the paper. It's measured by what that paper can command in the real world. The house, the groceries, the healthcare, the education, the freedom. Money doesn't lose value all at once. It fades so slowly that most people never notice it happening. That's inflation, not an event. Process. A silent transfer of purchasing power that works every single year, whether you're paying attention or not. This is where financial projections often become misleading. Suppose someone says, historically, the stock market has returned around 10% per year. That statement is broadly accurate as a long-term historical average before inflation. But if inflation averages around 3% over those same decades, your purchasing power isn't growing by 10%. It's growing by something closer to 7% before taxes and investment costs. That difference sounds small until you stretch it across 30 or 40 years. Because compounding works on inflation too. The same mathematical force building your investments is quietly shrinking the value of every future dollar. Daniel realizes something surprising. The million-dollar dream wasn't necessarily false. It was incomplete. The projection described future dollars. His future lifestyle depends on today's purchasing power. Those are two completely different measurements. And suddenly, the goal changes. Instead of chasing the biggest possible number, he starts chasing the strongest possible financial life. Those sound similar. They're not. Think about three different investors. The first spends years searching for the perfect portfolio. The second starts immediately but ignores every financial emergency. The third builds a simple system, expects realistic returns, protects against life's interruptions, and keeps investing automatically every month. Which one wins? Most people instinctively choose the smartest investor. History usually rewards the most consistent one, because investing isn't a contest of intelligence. It's a contest of endurance. The market rarely asks whether you're clever. It asks whether you'll still be participating 20 or 30 years from now. That changes how Daniel evaluates every piece of financial advice. He no longer asks, "Is this strategy perfect?" Instead he asks, "Can I realistically follow this through recessions, job changes, unexpected expenses, and ordinary life?" If the answer is no, the strategy doesn't matter. Even the highest expected return produces nothing if the plan collapses halfway through. Consistency has an unfair advantage over optimization. Because consistency compounds, perfection usually procrastinates. Months later, Daniel's financial system looks almost boring. A spending limit he can actually maintain. A cash reserve waiting quietly for emergencies. Automatic investing every payday. Broad diversification instead of constant prediction. He checks his accounts less often. He worries less. Ironically, his finances improve faster once he stops trying to optimize every tiny decision. Because every decision had already been made. Automation replaced willpower. Discipline replaced excitement. Time replaced prediction. That's the pattern hidden beneath almost every genuine wealth story. Not secret ratios. Not impossible returns. Not perfect timing. Just a sequence that survives reality. Spend less than you earn. Protect what you've already built. Invest consistently in productive assets. Give compounding enough years to do work that feels invisible today. And obvious decades later, the internet will keep producing new formulas, new percentages, new shortcuts, new promises. Some will sound convincing. Some may even work. But before following any of them, ask one question. Does this improve the foundation or only decorate the spreadsheet? Because fortunes aren't usually lost by choosing 60% instead of 65. They're lost by delaying, by abandoning the plan, by assuming emergencies won't happen, or by believing the biggest number on the screen tells the whole story. It never does. The most valuable financial plan isn't the one that looks smartest on YouTube. It's the one that's still quietly working while everyone else is searching for a better one.